Welcome to Bled Talk, the podcast where insightful conversations meet language learning. I'm your host, Samuel Bledsoe, and on this show, we dive deep into a variety of topics with fascinating guests from all walks of life. Whether you're an English learner looking to sharpen your language skills, or simply someone who enjoys thought-provoking discussions, Bled Talk is something for you. From engaging interviews to solo episodes filled with knowledge and inspiration, join us as we explore the world one conversation at a time. Get ready for a journey of learning, curiosity, and meaningful dialogues. Welcome to Bled Talk. Welcome everybody this week to Bled Talk. We have a very special guest, teacher Babi, and she is an English teacher here in Brazil. She is native to Brazil, but her English is fantastic. And we're going to learn a lot about some of her tips that she has. We're going to learn about her story, kind of how she got to where she is today. And we're going to learn a little bit about her right now because I'm going to ask her a couple either or questions. I'm going to ask her which one she prefers. But first of all, Babi, thank you for coming on to the show. I'm super excited to have you and to be able to have this conversation. So
yeah, thank you. I'm so excited. Yeah, I can't wait.
Awesome. So here is your first either or question. Do you prefer either McDonald's or Burger King?
Definitely McDonald's. I love McDonald's.
Okay, like in McDonald's from everywhere, like every country, McDonald's is the winner.
No. I don't like McDonald's in England. And what's the other place? I think in the Netherlands. I didn't like it that much. Like they didn't have any like really good options, but in Brazil I really like it, and in some other countries as well.
Yeah. No, that's good. I always tell people I like McDonald's in the United States, and then I prefer Burger King in Brazil. That's my dilemma.
In Brazil, really?
Yeah, well, the Brazilian Burger King is fantastic because it's clean and it's like well kept, and it's a good place to go. Whereas in the US, like it's dirty. It's almost always dirty. It's just like very
No.
low quality.
Really?
Yeah. So
Good to know.
I mean, go there, try it, but just so you have that experience of like, okay, Brazilian pride in Burger King, definitely 100%. Good. All right. Well, the next one is, do you prefer Nike or Adidas?
I will go with Nike.
Okay. Why Nike? Why is Nike better?
I think I see more Nike like everywhere. So it's a little bit stronger like in my heart and my mind. And I do have a few like clothes and shoes from Nike and Adidas. How do you say it? Adidas or Adidas?
Yeah, we say Adidas. Adidas.
With D. So I had like one pair of shoes and they didn't last long. So
really?
Maybe that's why.
That's impressive.
When I had them for like 2 months or something, there was a hole in it. So I was like, oh, that's not really a good quality. So that's why.
Yeah, no, for me, it's like completely opposite. I love Adidas
really
so much, but I think it's because I played basketball a lot, and so for me, Adidas shoes were a lot stronger, which is funny that you brought up shoes that broke, but my Adidas basketball shoes were a lot stronger. They were a lot better because every time I bought Nikes, they just ripped and they were just terrible. So
really,
yeah. So I always tell people I prefer Adidas, but I understand the appeal of Nike. They have good clothes. I do agree with that. Definitely.
They do, yeah.
And the next one is, do you prefer Coke or Pepsi? Or no soda at all?
I like both, but I will go with Coca-Cola. I drink it more often, so that's why. But Pepsi is good as well.
Yeah.
How about you?
For me, like Coke is just, it's better, I think. And Pepsi, for me, I only drink Pepsi if it's available and there's no Coke to drink. So it's like,
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there, but it's not like that great.
Not your first option.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I think like I compare Pepsi is like a kiwi, it's like the the little snacks that people eat here, because
Yeah.
everything else is delicious, but like kiwis are not that good, but people still eat them because it's like the last option that's there. I
Yeah,
don't know.
but I don't know why they buy it. Like
I don't
I
either.
wouldn't just order. I would just go for the other things.
I
It
feel
doesn't
like
make sense.
I feel like everybody thinks that somebody likes them, but nobody is willing to say, yeah, I don't want these
Yeah,
here. But
maybe that's why.
yeah, I've met like two people who just love kiwis. Everyone else is like, oh yeah, I like them. And I was like, but if you have the choice between like the little cheese balls or a coxinha, like you would choose both of those before you chose the kiwi. But I think I would almost
Yeah,
all the time.
me
Definitely.
too.
Cool. All right,
But
next
like
one.
one question, do you
Sure.
drink, I mean, do you have like Cola Zero in the US or
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
just like light Coke?
No, we have we call it Coke Zero. Yeah, it was. I
Coke
like
Zero.
because there's Diet Coke and then there's Coke Zero, and I
Oh,
definitely
it's
prefer Coke
Diet Coke.
Zero. Yeah, though there used
Oh,
to
okay.
be apparently here in Brazil there was like a light Coke. There was like
Yeah,
Coke, light Coke, and then Diet Coke, and then now
yeah.
there's Coke Zero. And I was like, who would buy light Coke? Like, if you're gonna just ruin your taste
It's
buds,
weird.
then either go full zero
Right?
or go full Coke. But who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
That's something. All right, next one is ketchup or mayonnaise.
Ooh. Well, it depends on the mayonnaise. I really love Belgium and like Dutch mayonnaise, but that's it. Oh no, in Brazil, the only one I like is like I'm not sure how to pronounce this brand. Is it Heinz or Hangs? How do you pronounce
We
it? It's
say we
German,
say
right?
Heinz. Heinz.
Heinz.
Uh-huh.
So like if it's Heinz, I think I would go. It's a really tough question because it depends on what you're eating.
That's true. That's
It's,
very true. I think, but
right?
like, if you were to take all the situations that you use ketchup, all the situations you use mayonnaise, like, which one does it apply more? Like, which one is worth the sacrifice?
Probably ketchup, but if I'm eating like fries or sausages, I would definitely go for mayonnaise.
Well, okay, okay,
But it's mostly ketchup.
that's fair. Yeah, I like ketchup. I just think that sometimes it's used a little too much. Like I don't know.
Really?
I yeah, for me because like I like ketchup a lot. I loved it as a kid, but like it's one of those things that for me I feel like if you use a lot of ketchup, it's because the food you're eating is not that good. So you
Mm,
need to cover it with ketchup so that it tastes like ketchup and
yeah,
not the food itself. I don't know if
that
that,
makes sense.
but yeah, and
What
that's
about mustard? Do
you
you like
know
it?
I love mustard, but it's a special. How can I put it? Like mustard's one of those things that there are things that need mustard, but like not everything can have mustard. Whereas like ketchup, you can put ketchup on just about anything, but like mustard is
Yeah,
only good on certain things. But I love
makes
mustard.
sense.
It's good. What's your
Nice.
opinion of barbecue sauce?
Barbecue sauce. I really like it, but just like you said, like regarding the mustard, I think it's pretty much the same because it doesn't go well with everything. So basically with pork meat, it goes really well with pork. Do you
Right.
agree?
Oh, I agree. I think because for me, like barbecue sauce goes on everything, but that's like
Yeah.
it's like a regional thing for us because where I'm from, we have our own style of barbecue. And
Okay.
part of our style of barbecue is using barbecue sauce to make it. You see people who they will let the meat like marinate in barbecue
Yep.
sauce and then they will cook it and put barbecue sauce on it while it's on the grill. And then they'll take it
That's good.
and put it in more barbecue sauce after that. And so for us, and I always tell people like here in Brazil, there's like one type of barbecue sauce. It's like barbecue sauce,
Yeah.
and there's different brands. Whereas like where I'm from, there's like 10, 15, 20 different types of barbecue sauce.
Really?
Yeah, some are sweet,
Dude,
some
I
are more
have to go to
salty.
the US.
Yeah, it's good. I promise. It's very very tasty. But yeah, and then the last
Nice.
last one I have before we get to your story
Yeah.
is Batman or Superman?
Ooh, Batman.
Batman. Why? Why Batman?
Don't ask me why. I don't know. I just think I don't know, maybe he's more um mysterious and more um I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of like either of them, but
Right. But if you had to
yeah,
choose, probably
Batman.
Batman. Yeah. No, I get that. Like I always tell people because a lot of people love Batman, and I'm not sure why. Because like to me, Batman, like you said, he's just super serious all the time, and he's like almost depressing. Like he's just always sad.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
Superman is like he's super, right? He's cool. He has powers and everything, and then like Batman's just rich, I think. But
Yeah.
that's
Maybe
I
that's
think that's
why.
what that might be why he's appealing because everyone's like, oh, I could be Batman, maybe if I had millions of dollars and I worked out
Yeah,
all the time.
exactly. Yeah. I don't
Maybe
know.
that's the thought. Yeah,
Yeah, and he's more like deep as well. So that's kind of interesting. So maybe
yeah.
that's why. And I
He's
also don't remember the Superman movie, so
That's
that's
true. I
also
do
a
think
reason
that
why.
yeah, no, but Batman movies are definitely more memorable than the Superman movies. I
Yeah,
agree with that 100%. But yeah, well, cool. Well,
I loved it.
I feel like we know each other a little bit better now, and
Yeah.
everybody else who's listening knows you a little bit better as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and kind of like how you got to being teacher Bobby, right? How did you get there?
That's a good question. Well, I've always loved English since I was really, really young, and I basically wanted to sing. I really loved singing and like pop music, so I've always wanted to learn how to sing the songs, and that's how I've become really, really interested in English, and that's how it all started. And I remember like being 11 and coming to my mom, "Hey, mom, I really want to study English. Can you like enroll me somewhere, please?" And she was like, "Yeah, okay." So I started studying, and like throughout my whole childhood and well, when I was a teenager as well, of course, I was always studying because I really love grammar. Like I'm a grammar freak. I love grammar, which is kind of weird. Like
Hang on.
I wasn't right.
No,
I
I
wasn't like
agree with you. Yeah, it's weird, but cool. It's cool.
no, I've never been like the best student in my class or anything. I wasn't, I was pretty average, to be honest, in school, you know? Well, except for math and like physics, then I was terrible. I really sucked. But can I say that word?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
you can say
Sorry.
something. It's okay.
Okay. So I was really, really bad at those subjects, but when he when it came like to English and Portuguese, I was really good at it. And I've always loved grammar, so I would always study English. I remember I used to go to school every Saturday for 2 hours, but the whole week I was there, like listening to music and singing. So that really helped with my pronunciation as well. And that's actually how I learned it. So I studied a lot, but I also practiced a lot. And when I was 18, yeah, 18, I went to Belgium. So I lived in Belgium for a year, which is kind of funny because people ask me like, why Belgium? Like, why? How did you end up there? And at first, I was planning on going to the US to be an au pair. You know that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I remember I was 18 and I had just gotten my driver's license. So someone told me I had to wait a year to get my how do you say it? Like when you need you have like I forgot the word in both languages. So when you get your driver's license, you
Right.
have one for a year, right? It's like
Like a permit, right? And then so
yeah, I
you have
needed
like
the
a perm
permanent one, but what's the word for the other one?
no, no, it's a permit, the permit. So you have like
Yeah,
a driver's
well, it
permit, then
wasn't a
you have
permit.
your
Was it
yeah.
a permit?
Yeah, I think it's a permit.
Maybe, yeah, maybe it was a permit. And then I got my real driver's license, so I had to wait for it. And then I didn't want to wait. I wanted to go like live somewhere else because I've always wanted to. Since I was a kid, it was always my dream. Like I've always wanted to travel abroad and to get to know other cultures and places and people. It was my thing. I wanted to travel. That's all I wanted to do. But my parents couldn't afford it. So I waited until I was 18 and I started working when I was 16 actually, and I saved all my money from this 2 years working. And when I turned 18, I applied to the au pair program. But then I couldn't go to the US as fast as I could. So that's why I decided to go to Europe because apparently it was easier. So
It is
I
a lot
applied.
easier to go to Europe than
It
the
is.
US,
Yeah. That's why I haven't applied for my tourist visa yet. Like I'm so afraid I'm gonna be, my visa is gonna be denied and declined or denied, and then I'm just too lazy to go for it. But I really want to go to the U.S. So then I went to Belgium for a year. I was an au pair there, and I could already speak English, but I also improved a lot. And when I came back to Brazil, I was like, oh, what am I gonna do now? So I started like sending resumes to English schools, and I actually got a job pretty soon, which was really cool. And I was working there for a year. Can I mention like
Yeah,
names
sure,
of
yeah.
schools?
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. I'm not big enough for it to
So
cause a problem, so it's okay.
so I used to work at Wizard. You know it, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
So I worked there for a year and it was great because I really learned a lot about how to teach English. And I also improved my English a lot, which was great. It was a really nice experience. But then I was pretty, not homesick, but like the opposite. I really missed living abroad. So after a year, I decided to come back. And like in the meantime, I also started university. But then I went back to Europe and I lived in the Netherlands for a year, which was also really nice. And it really, really helped me with my English. It's so nice when you have this opportunity to actually be there, even though they're not like English is not their native language, but
Right,
everyone speaks English there. So like, or you can speak either Dutch or English. So that's it. And I
right.
would rather speak English. So I would do it all the time. Um, so it was really, really nice. And then when I came back, I decided to start like with private classes online. And it was also like the pandemic time, when I came back, the pandemic was just about to start. So that's when everything became like online, right? And digital. So that's why I started with my private classes and everything. And then I decided to start making videos. So that's when like it was like a game changer because in the beginning, of course, it's hard. You know it. Probably in the beginning, it's a little bit frustrating. Like you posted, and like it's,
It's
I don't
not
know.
anywhere, right? It's just stagnant. It's like you post five
Yeah,
times and then you lose 5 followers, and you're like, how did that work, right?
yeah, exactly. Like, what's the point? So it was really frustrating at first. And yeah, then I just kept doing it. And suddenly I started getting a lot of followers. And this was last year. Last year, yeah. It wasn't in the end of 2022, beginning 2023. So it's actually a brand new. Hasn't been a long time since I started posting. And it was really, really fun because you can actually understand what people need and what are they struggling with, and everything, because you have like stories from a bunch of different people, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's actually how I got where I am right now. So I just kept posting, and now I yeah, I think I'm in a pretty good place right now.
cool. No, that's awesome. That's fantastic. I love the story.
Yeah.
It's a good build up to how you got to where you are. And you had talked about like, finally you got to this position where a lot of people were talking to you, telling you about the problems, the kind of things that they needed within the English world. And so tell me this. I want to know your honest opinion. Do you think that people know what they need when it comes to learning English? Or do you think that people think that they know what they need, but they don't? It's not the same thing.
I think some people do think they know, but most people have no idea. They're just like, hey, Babi, I need to speak English. Help me. Like, I don't know how or what I need, but I need it. So help me, please.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
well, the reason
how
I asked that is because I agree with you 100%. I think some people know, but most people don't. And I think a lot of times, like within our world on the internet, I think sometimes people just kind of listen to what the teacher says is the problem, and that's what they just take on as the problem, right? So like people will be like, oh, speaking is the hardest thing for me in English. And it turns out it's really not speaking that's the problem, right? It's they can't listen very well. It's very difficult for them to hear, or maybe reading and recognizing the words, maybe that's a different thing. And so
yep.
I think that yeah, I just wanted to ask you about that. And then kind of taking that with you. So this is a question that I don't get to ask a lot of people, especially because, like I said, in the past I've interviewed a lot of native speakers. But what do you think, for example, so you are Brazilian and you learned to speak English, and now you teach English, you help people speak, and you speak perfectly. I don't think that there's anything uh, for me. There's nothing.
Really?
But yeah, no, I love how you speak. I think it's fantastic. Um,
Thanks.
and
That's good to
so
know.
Well, and so my thing is like what what is the benefit? I think a lot of people don't get to hear this, but what is the benefit of studying with somebody who learned English just like these people are learning as well? So like, for example, what's the benefit of studying with a Brazilian teacher who has become fluent in English?
Okay, I think the benefit about learning with a Brazilian teacher, that's the
Yeah,
question, right?
absolutely. Uh-huh.
Okay, I think that it's really hard to start studying. Uh, I think it's really hard to start learning a new language, um, like from that new language. I believe it's really important to start with Portuguese as well. And I was talking about that with someone yesterday, actually. Who was that? I think it was a girl. Oh, yeah, it was a girl asking me about classes. And she was like, I think it was really hard in the beginning for me because my teacher would only speak English, like from the beginning, and I couldn't understand a thing. And I said, yeah, I think that's hard as well. It's tough because in the beginning it's everything is so new. So it's hard to get everything you're learning, right? So I really believe in a way of learning where you get to translate and then you're like you adapt it, halfway there, and then you start speaking less Portuguese and more English. So it doesn't get frustrating in the beginning
Right.
for the student. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is kind of like that's usually where people quit. I think is like they get to the point where they realize it's a lot of work and it might be a little too difficult, right? And so I agree with you. I think by using Portuguese and kind of using that can really help somebody get into
It's
English
like
and
a
understand
bridge.
it. Well, and I love that you talked about the bridge because for me, when I explain my method to people and I tell them about what I do, I always tell them that I try to build the same bridge that I have between, English and Portuguese for them and Portuguese to English because I explain it like this. I always tell them that it's like a brother, right, or a sibling. You have Portuguese that's been an only child for a long time in your mind, and now you're learning English, and so it's like a new sibling is there. And usually
Yep.
in the beginning, it's really cool. You're like, oh wow, this is so different. But then, really soon after that, you start to fight. You have a lot of fights, and the language is fighting. You're like, English doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. I don't know why people speak it. This is stupid, and they just keep going. And then they start to help each other, and you start to see that by speaking English, your Portuguese is actually going to get better, and by speaking Portuguese, your English gets better. And I always tell people that I speak English better now than what I did before I spoke Portuguese because now
Really?
now I understand English on a much deeper level. And something that I, not trying to toot my own horn, be prideful, but apart from a lot of other Americans that I've met that have learned Portuguese, they learn it. And like I said, they're very happy with what they have. They're content. It's okay. I married a Brazilian woman, and I am constantly trying to learn new words so that I understand more what she says so I can express myself better to her. And because I have that thing pushing me, not only to understand Portuguese, but to understand Brazilian culture, I think that
Yeah.
it helps me have a much deeper appreciation for Portuguese. And I'm somebody who, when I go back and I watch my videos that I make, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to speak better. I need to pronounce that word better. I need to say this better. And
Are you a perfectionist?
I wouldn't say perfectionist. I know what I'm capable of doing,
Yeah.
and I hold myself to that standard, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because if I don't think I would post if I was a perfectionist, because
Yeah.
I know plenty of people who that video needs to be perfect. They're like, oh, you have something in your tooth and this, and it's like, no, I'm not. For me, it's like, I'll just make it and post it. But like, I want my Portuguese to be good. And I think a lot of people, they also want their English to be good, but they need to realize
Yes, of course.
just because it's not top perfect level doesn't mean that you're not speaking well and you're not progressing, right? There's a progression through that. And
Exactly.
what do you think is a big problem when it comes specifically to Brazil, like Brazil learning, or maybe your students? What are the problems that they have with English that you've seen that maybe it's different from the rest of the world, but or
Hmm.
maybe it's the same, but it's something that you see and it's very common.
Well, first, I think regarding like the language itself, I think they really struggle with the pronunciation of the words. Not that it has to be perfect, of course, not that they cannot have an accent. I'm not saying that, but sometimes they really struggle with speaking like um fluent sentences, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also with the pronunciation of a few words. Sometimes some students they just can't repeat it because their muscles are not used to it yet. So they have to work on that, of course. But for example, I had a student, she couldn't pronounce the word girl. And I remember I was trying to help her for like half an hour and she just couldn't do it. Girl, she said something like completely different. So I think it's not a problem at all if you have an accent, as I said, but sometimes you need to actually, I mean, you need to be understood. That's the point.
Well, that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just gonna finish that. You need to be understood, so you do have to make an effort to get as close as you can to be understood, not to be perfect. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I did a course when we talked about like grammar in English. We're talking about grammar. It's funny because I thought it was going to be like about capitalization and like periods and word order and things. I was in the course like the first 5 weeks. We just talked about phonetics because the thing is, and this is what it really helped me because right now in our bubble of English, this is a really hot topic, right? Of
Yeah,
sound like a native, or your accent is okay, or don't worry if an American doesn't understand you because Americans are ignorant, whatever the video is. The thing is, like you said, you need to be understood. And so,
yep,
and this is what we learned about with phonetics is that, is there a different way that you're going to sound when you say the same word? Absolutely. But it does need to come out in a way that can be understood by most
exactly.
speakers. And the reason why I think so many people focus on like having a native accent or like a native speaking, pronunciation is because natives are almost always understood when it comes to English. Like that's like the golden model of
Yeah,
how to pronounce the word. Now, do you have to be perfect, like you said? No. But
no,
should we try to get close? Yeah, absolutely. I try to sound Brazilian when I speak. I try to have that. I'm not that person who's like, oh, well, if they don't understand me, that's their fault. No,
Yeah,
shouldn't expect you shouldn't have to understand my accent, right? I should try to have an accent that's understandable. And I think that's what so many people get confused with, like what we're talking about, because with us, when we say the accents are okay, that's fine, but that doesn't mean you can just pronounce it how you want to. You know,
exactly.
it means that if you sound a little Brazilian when you talk, that's fine. If you sound a little, a little French when you talk, that's okay. But
It's even cute.
yeah, it's some people even love it. Like for example,
Yeah.
and even in English, like people enjoy different English accents. Like all the girls in the US, they go crazy over the British accent, like the
Oh,
more
I do too.
southern.
Yeah.
They love it. They
So
hear
do
it, they're like,
I.
"Ooh, he's so smart," and
I
or
know. Yeah.
there's the American. I mean, sorry, they're the Australian men whenever they talk and they have that the outback kind of like sound to it, and so accents are normal, like you said, it's perfectly fine. But being understood is also really important. And I think we get a little. I think in the big scheme of videos, we get a little confused when we watch stuff, and so I think that
Yep.
sometimes people will be like, I really want to sound native, and it's like you don't need to sound native. You just need to sound fluent. Be able to communicate those.
Exactly. And some people, they get really shy because of that. So they don't actually go for it. So for example, if my student is like struggling with her pronunciation, even if it's good, if she can, even if she can be understood, she won't talk to other people because it's not perfect. And then it comes like to perfection again, like we were talking. And they don't talk to anyone. I had a student, she could speak really, really well, like almost perfectly. And she would only talk to me because she was super shy because she didn't think she was good enough. So that's also the whole point. You have to go for it. Like even if it's not good enough, just go for it and improve it. So you will eventually get better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what do you think that our students could do to overcome these difficulties that they have? Like, what's something that you think if they were to do this more, it could help them maybe overcome these pronunciation difficulties or the shyness that people have when they speak? What did you?
Yeah, definitely sing. I think it's a really good tip. I always tell people to sing because it really helped me with my pronunciation. So singing is a really good exercise because you're listening to what they're singing and then you're doing it yourself. So you're working both ways, like input and output, right? So I think that's a really good exercise, but also, of course, watching series, I think it's a really nice way to do it. And you have to pay attention. It's not just watching and forget about the language. When I watch something, I turn on the like English subtitles and I really pay attention to them, to what they're saying, to what I'm reading, so I can relate the words with the sounds, you know? So that's actually what I do. Can I mention something else that I thought
Sure, yeah,
about?
absolutely.
So I was thinking of another struggle actually that people have that I really think it's the biggest one is that like people give up halfway there. They start really excited. They're like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna learn English. I can't wait. Like uh, this time it's actually gonna work." And then after 2 months, they have other priorities and they actually just forget about it. But that's the thing with humans, right? Everyone does that. So it's really, really important to have discipline, to focus, to have like a study plan. I just did that and I hope it works this time. I'm starting to learn Spanish right now.
Yes, it-
I just started in the past week, last week. So right now I'm organizing my week. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I really want to study marketing because I really love marketing and I work with that as well. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, Spanish. So I think that's also a really good tip for people who struggle with organizing their studies, because it's really important to do that to actually achieve your goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's my first class usually. My first class is creating a study plan, creating a thing, something for them to do outside of class. And also the first thing that we put on the paper is their goals. That's the first thing that's there. I say, what is your main goal in English? And we put that there so that they always know that that is what we're working for, right? Because I
Yeah.
think sometimes we forget the why, right? We forget, why are
Yeah.
we learning? Why are you learning English? Some people are like, oh, I'm just learning because it's fun. I don't think that they're really gonna go forward, right? You have to have something. It can be
A
something,
motivation. Yeah.
yeah, it can be something small, but it needs to be something you go, oh, I want to do this, and this is what's gonna help me get there. And so I
Yeah.
think that is
A
definitely,
reminder.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah, that's
so,
really important.
yeah, we're getting close to the end. Unfortunately, it's
Oh
too
no.
fast. But I would like to ask you: do you have any last tips? I think for anybody, for example, who maybe is right there at that giving up point, right? They they're just about done with English. They're like, I can't do this. I can't study. I don't have time, or whatever it may be. What is your last stand with that, or what would you tell them?
Yeah. I would definitely tell them to learn how to like the process and find the fun in it. If you don't like studying, try something else. Try music, try Netflix. I don't know. Try podcasts. There are so many ways of learning and practicing, or you can just find people to talk to communicate. There are so many ways to do it, and it can be so fun. And I think that's the best tip I can give. Just find the fun in the process.
Oh,
It's a
that's
good
not.
tip, right?
I love it. I think it's good. Yeah, because some people, they treat it like it's a chore, right? Like it's something that's
Yeah,
not that they have to do. Make it something you want to do, right? Make it something that you will enjoy.
exactly. Find the
Absolutely,
fun in it. Or even
exactly.
if you can't find it, you make it up. You
But it
create like something fun about it, right?
make
You
it
can do
fun.
that.
Yeah, make it creative. Do something,
Yeah.
right? Make a game or do something. I always tell people, like,
Yeah.
if you have your family, like a lot of times families will kind of try and study together, and it's like, make a game out of it. We'll see
Yeah,
whoever speaks Portuguese first has to do the dishes, or whatever it may be. Something small, uh, so
exactly.
that you can have fun. But I really appreciate that. I love your tips. I loved your story, and everything that you shared with us was fantastic. Do you have
Thank you.
any do you have any last comments or anything you want to make before we close?
I really want to thank you for having me. It was really, really fun. It was the
Good.
first time I did something like that, and I loved it. So it was really fun. Thank you.
Good. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, and
Yeah.
thank you everybody else for listening and for making it this far into our conversation. If you have any questions for Teacher Bobby or for me, you can leave them in the comments. I'm also going to leave
Yeah.
all of her links and all of her social media in the comment or in the description, so that you guys can go follow her and continue learning English. And who knows, maybe in the future, right? If there's enough questions, we can come back and have a part two. So,
Yeah,
it,
I would love that.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. But thank you, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time on Bled Talk.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Bled Talk. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more content. We are on all of the popular podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and we're even on YouTube. Don't forget to send in your questions and your suggestions. Thank you once again, and have a great day.